So, what would actually happen if you let AI make every single decision for you all day long? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. It's this fascinating story about one person's journey into what we're calling the algorithm of autonomy.
The idea is so simple, but wow, the implications are huge. For 16 hours, basically from the moment they woke up until they went to bed, one person handed over the reins. Every choice, big and small, was outsourced to an algorithm. I'm talking what to eat, when to work, even who to talk to. Absolutely nothing was left to just, human impulse.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is the big paradox that makes this whole story so compelling. By every possible metric you could track, the day was a total smashing success. But the actual human experience of living that day? Well, that was something else entirely. It really makes you wonder, right? What is the real price we pay for a perfectly optimized life?
All right, so let's get into the experiment itself. The whole goal here was pretty straightforward. Get rid of human error. The idea was, what if you could just strip away all the messy, inefficient stuff we do every day? The hesitating, the bad choices, the getting distracted, just to see what a life of pure optimization would actually look like.
And they didn't just use one tool, oh no. They brought in a whole suite of AIs to run the show. ChatGPT was on deck to generate the daily agenda. Other AIs planned out every meal and every single workout. There were even tools to manage emails and track focus. Literally every part of life was covered, turning this person's day into, well, a system to be managed.
And you know what? At first, this whole promise of a perfect day was kind of seductive. I mean, the benefits of just letting go and letting the AI take over were immediate, and you just couldn't deny them. The system just worked. It was amazing.
The day started at exactly 6:04 a.m. Yeah, not 6, not 6:05, 6:04. Why? Because the AI had calculated that specific time as the absolute optimal moment to wake up, based on sleep cycle data, to feel the least groggy. And you know what? It actually worked. But it was also that very first moment of giving up control. Waking up not because you decided to, but because an algorithm told you to.
Breakfast is just the perfect example of how this AI was thinking. It didn't recommend a few options. Nope. It prescribed oatmeal with the exact macros needed for optimal energy. It never once asked what the person felt like eating. It just calculated what their body needed. Desire was completely off the table. That meal wasn't breakfast. It was fuel. Just pure, calculated fuel. And the results? They were absolutely staggering. The AI-managed morning was a productivity machine. We're talking nearly double the number of tasks completed compared to a normal day. It's pretty clear that by getting rid of all that time spent wondering, what should I do next? The algorithm scored a huge, undeniable win, at least on paper.
But, and there's always a but, isn't there? This is where the story takes a turn. Because all that relentless, non-stop efficiency, it started to reveal a really deep, hidden cost. The cracks in this supposedly perfect day were definitely starting to show.
It became pretty clear what the core problem was. The AI's logic was all about one thing: measurable outcomes. Tasks checked off, calories burned, metrics hit. It just had no way of understanding, let alone optimizing for, something like the quality of the human experience. That wasn't in its program. This really came to a head with email. An AI assistant went through the inbox and it just ignored a message from a friend who was just checking in, and it totally deprioritized a request for help from a small creator. And why? Because those things didn't line up with the day's hard-coded productivity goals. The AI chose efficiency over relationships, a trade-off that most of us, hopefully, would never consciously make.
The workout was another one of these moments. It was just brutal. The AI designed it for one thing and one thing only: results. It was all based on this principle of progressive overload. It didn't care if the person was tired. It didn't care if they were enjoying it. It was just this cold, metric-driven session that, sure, left them feeling accomplished, but also completely and utterly joyless.
And this really gets us to the heart of the whole experiment, doesn't it? A day that looks absolutely flawless on a spreadsheet can feel totally hollow when you're the one living it. The real conflict here wasn't between making good choices and bad choices. It was between two completely different ideas of what a good day even is.
That feeling really hit home during a walk that the AI had scheduled. The person was just following the little blue line on a map. There was no room to wander off, no room for curiosity. In that moment, life felt less like something you live and more like a checklist you just have to complete.
I mean, that's a pretty profound and honestly kind of chilling thought.
If you look at the schedule the AI spit out, it's a masterpiece of time management. It really is. But if you look a little closer, you start to see it's also a kind of prison of efficiency. There are no gaps, no room for spontaneity, no room for boredom. None of those little unplanned moments that, let's be honest, are what make life worth living. So at the end of the day, the AI actually gave a report card. 94% productive, 97% on target for nutrition, basically an A+. But that just highlights the huge limitation here, right? Metrics can track your output, sure, but they can't measure your sense of purpose or fulfillment. The day was a success, but it just didn't matter.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit, because this isn't just about one person's weird day. This whole story is a pretty powerful warning sign for where all of us might be heading with our relationship to technology.
This really shines a light on what you could call the autonomy trade-off. Think about it. We're constantly being offered these tools that promise to make our lives easier, more efficient. But there's always a hidden price, and that price is a little piece of our own power to make decisions. We're trading our control for convenience, piece by piece.
And here's the tricky part. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow burn. It starts small. You let an AI manage your calendar. Okay, no big deal. Then you let it plan your meals. Then track your sleep. Each step feels tiny and harmless on its own. But you add them all up, and suddenly you've outsourced your entire life without ever really making a conscious choice to do so.
The long-term danger here is pretty clear. It's kind of like how using GPS all the time can make you worse at navigating on your own. When we outsource all these little daily choices, the actual skill of making decisions starts to fade. And here's the kicker. This isn't a bug. It's the business model. These tools are literally designed to make us dependent on them. Which brings us all the way back to that one big question. If you have a day that is perfect by every single metric, but the person who lived it feels completely empty, was it actually a good day? And the final takeaway here is just so powerful. The problem was never that the AI's choices were wrong. In fact, a lot of the time, they were probably optimal. The problem was that they weren't mine. That simple, messy, sometimes totally inefficient act of just choosing for ourselves, well, that's what gives our lives meaning. And that's one thing no algorithm is ever going to be able to optimize.